Welcome back to Movie Short. Today I will show you an action, sci-fi, thriller film from 2006, titled Children of Men. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The year is 2027. For almost 2 decades, humanity has been incapable of reproducing, and it's now on the brink of extinction. This has caused society to collapse. The United Kingdom is one of the few remaining nations with a functioning government, which has caused a wave of refugees to illegally enter the nation. This has brought the army to patrol the streets, catching immigrants for imprisonment or even execution. The story begins when our protagonist, Theo Farron, enters a bakery to get some coffee and hears the news on the TV. The youngest person in the world passed away. After years of struggling with his celebrity status, his age had earned him. He was attacked by a fan for not wanting to give out his autograph. Everyone in the shop seems to be devastated by this tragedy, but Theo doesn't look too bothered. He leaves the bakery and only stops a few feet away to add whiskey to his coffee when suddenly there is an explosion from the shop. There's lots of screaming and alarms going off, but thankfully Theo doesn't get hurt. With an annoying ringing in his ears and still unbothered, Theo goes to work as if nothing had happened. In the office, almost nobody is getting actual work done. They're too busy crying over the loss of the world's youngest person. Theo takes this as an opportunity. He lies to his boss and tells him he's upset over the news too, so he asks permission to finish his work at home before leaving. On his way back, the train he's taken is constantly on the receiving end of stones from rebels and indigents. There also are many cages filled with refugees and guarded by the cops on the station. This still doesn't make Theo even blink. Outside the station, Theo meets with his old friend Jasper Palmer. After a hug, they get in Jasper's car and drive to his place in the countryside while discussing the bakery explosion. Considering the idea it may have been the government itself that planted the bomb, they see a bus pass by, taking refugees to a camp in Bexhill. Jasper's place is hidden in the woods, so hidden that they need to stop the car and move some decoy branches away to be able to pass. Jasper makes fun of Theo for his lack of love life and his alcohol problem. He also offers him to come live with him, but Theo turns down the offer. Once they're inside the house, we learn through photos and newspaper clips that Jasper used to be a political cartoonist and his wife Janice was a photojournalist. These days, however, Jasper became a hippie and pot dealer, and Janice is in a catatonic state since she was tortured. There are also our old pictures of Theo with a woman and a little boy. After saying hi to Janice, Theo and Jasper hang out on the couch smoking and discussing various topics. Jasper mentions his main client is an immigration cop at the Bexhill camp, and they argue over the possible existence of the Human Project, a secret scientific organization with hidden facilities where they're trying to find a cure to humanity's infertility. Theo is back at his home the next day, and when he leaves for work, he's kidnapped in the street by a militant group called the Fishes. Face covered, they put him in the van and don't uncover him until they have him in Fishes territory. When Theo opens his eyes again, he is in a protected room, and he sees for the first time in years his ex-wife Julian Taylor, who apologizes for the theatrics, but they had to do this to avoid the police. She's been a wanted woman since their activist days, but Theo has left that life behind. After explaining they weren't the ones who put the bomb in the bakery, Julian takes Theo outside for a walk. The reason why she's made him come is that she needs transfer papers for a refugee girl to get to the coast, and Theo can get them through his cousin. Theo turns down the idea, and when Julian offers monetary compensation, he says he doesn't need her money, an obvious lie. Since he isn't collaborating, Julian makes her people cover his face again and take him out of their place. While on the van, one of the Fishes tells Theo this has never happened and that they'll always be watching him. Another one gives him a paper sign to hang on the tube in case he changes his mind. Then Theo is thrown in the middle of the street with some change for the bus. Sometime later, it seems Theo does end up changing his mind, because he pays his cousin Nigel, who works as a minister, a visit. A fancy car with its own driver picks him up and takes him to the private residence, where the minister keeps and restore classic works of art, like Michelangelo's David, which is missing a chunk of its leg. After hugging, they have lunch together with the minister's son, who ignores them completely while playing on a screen connected directly to his body. After asking his cousin about his wife, Theo asks for the transfer papers by making up a story that they're for his girlfriend to be able to visit her very sick brother in Brighton. Nigel points out it's a huge favor since it's highly controlled and, after yelling at his son to take his pills, he asks Theo to follow him to the window, where he tells him he'll see what he can do. Theo wonders why Nigel keeps all this art when in 100 years there won't be anyone to look at it. Nigel replies he just doesn't think about it. Hours later, Theo is at a pub and is approached by one of the fishes, Luke, who saw the sign Theo had been given posted outside. Theo explains he did get the papers, but they're joint, so he is the one who will have to escort the girl, a task he'll accept if he's paid more. Luke accepts because Julian thinks highly of Theo. The next day, Theo is approached by one of the fishes again while he's betting on the dogs, a woman that shows him the same sign he used the day before. He follows her outside and onto a bus, where Julian is waiting for him. She asks about the papers before reminiscing about the old days, but they end up arguing over the way they handled the passing of their child, Dylan, and eventual separation. When they reach their stop, they hurry out of the bus and Theo takes the chance to ask why he was chosen. Julian says she trusts him. He also asks what will happen to them, and Julian says she doesn't know before becking his lips. She says he's only come for the money. After crossing a bridge, they walk under it to meet with Luke, who gives Theo his money as soon as he asks for it. While explaining to him that he'll be taken to the first checkpoint in Canterbury and then he'll be on his own with the girl. They get in the car, where Theo is introduced to a woman named Miriam and the young girl he'll be escorting. They drive to Canterbury. Theo sleeps at the beginning of the trip, but when he wakes up later on, he and Julian reminisce about their old days as activists and play a little game with a golf ball. When they're about to reach their destination, they're ambushed by an armed gang. Julian gets shot. They manage to drive away from the gang, but then it's the police that arrive and chase them instead. Luke has no other option but to stop the car. However, when he gets out, he shoots both cops before returning to his place behind the wheel and getting everyone out of there as soon as possible. They stop to say their goodbyes to Julian. The two women cover the body with a shawl and pray, while Theo pretends to be unaffected until he distances himself from them, then he allows himself to cry. It doesn't last long though, because Luke quickly tells them to get back in the car so they can leave before they're caught again. It's nightfall when they reach a fish's safe house, where the entire group is meeting to vote for their new leader. Theo asks for a ride to London, but he's told it's too dangerous and he'll have to wait until the next day. Instead, he's offered a shower and clean clothes. After washing up, he chit-chats with one of the fishes before Miriam comes looking for him to take him to Key. She takes him to the barn while the fishes vote for Luke as their new leader. Inside the barn, Theo is left alone with Key, who says Julian told her stories of their child and if things got bad, she should talk to Theo because he's the only one she can trust to take her to the boat called the Tomorrow. Theo doesn't want anything to do with this, so to convince him, Key takes off her dress and reveals her secret. She's pregnant. Theo is shocked, not believing what he's seeing, but the moment is interrupted by Luke, who takes them all back to the house. They watch the news on the TV. Julian's body has been found, and they're now looking for the people that were with her in the car. The police think they'll be able to identify them soon. An argument starts then about what they should do with Key. The fishes don't want to make her public because the government will take her baby away, but Theo thinks she needs proper care. There's also the matter of the human project being rather difficult to contact, so they may lose their only chance if they don't go to meet that boat. Key decides to stay and have her baby in the safe house, but she still wants to be taken to the Tomorrow after her baby is born. Later that night, Theo can't sleep, so he is awake to hear the noises of people arriving outside. He sneaks around to secretly learn what's going on. It's the people that attacked them earlier. The ambush had been Luke's plan so he could become the leader and take control of the baby to use it as a political tool in their revolution. Theo won't allow this, so he rushes to Key's and Miriam's bedroom to tell them what's going on and help them escape. They sneak outside, and while hiding from the guards, they carefully approach each car. They disable 2 of them and enter the 3rd one, which won't start. Theo gets off and starts pushing it, gaining the attention of the fishes. Theo gets back in the car, which still doesn't start but at least is moving thanks to the fact they're going downhill. The men are going after them but aren't allowed to shoot because the girl is in the car. So they try to grab them through the window, but Theo and Miriam push them away. The car stops once more mid-hill. Theo gets out to push it again. It gets it moving, but it also gives the chance for one of the fishes to catch up with them and point his weapon at Theo, who pushes him off by hitting him with the door. At the base of the hill, the car gets stuck in mud, so Theo gets out to push while Miriam jump-starts it. It takes her a few tries but the car does end up working, so well in fact Theo has to run after it to get back inside. Miriam stops it for him and with Theo back with the women, they manage to escape the farm. Theo tells Miriam he knows of a place where they can hide and takes them to Jasper's house, who receives them with open arms. While having dinner, they discuss their options. The Human Project's boat will have 2 stops, and neither of them looks good. Windsmore is too far away to make it there in time, and the Bexhill is the refugee camp. Jasper thinks that's the solution, and tells them to eat while he gets some things ready. The next morning, Miriam is outside practicing something similar to yoga and Key is braiding Janice's hair. Theo approaches her and asks her about the pregnancy. She's 8 months pregnant and she doesn't know who the father is. At that moment, Jasper returns with a plan. The group can go to the Bexhill camp and meet with Jasper's cop buyer, who will smuggle them inside so they can get to their boat. Key accepts this plan. Night falls. While Theo is having a drink, he hears the others sharing a smoke and chatting. Jasper tells the women the story of how Theo and Julian met, as protesters in the middle of a rally by chance, and their relationship took a bad turn when they lost their kid to the flu pandemic. Not being able to hear more of it, Theo leaves them to their chat and goes to bed. The next morning, everyone's woken up by the alarm. The fishes have found them. Jasper gives Theo the instructions of how to contact Sid and sends him to the car with the women, refusing to go with them. He wants to stay, saying he's gotten out of worse situations. Theo drives the girls away but stops the car at a hill to look at what's going on in the house from afar. The fishes arrive and not liking Jasper's answers, they shoot him. Theo doesn't tell Key this. He says everything is okay before driving away for good this time. They make it to their meeting point the next day, an abandoned school. While Key enjoys the swings, Miriam tells Theo about her old job as a midwife and how she saw the infertility issue affect all her patients little by little. A truck arrives, then, it's Sid, their contact. After exchanging the password, Sid gets them in the truck and drives them away to the refugee camp. Key has her first contraction on the way. They tell Sid it's just her being carsick. They make it to Bexhill, and Sid tells them to put on sad refugee faces before moving them from the truck and into a bus filled with refugees that quickly leaves the area. Soon enough, Key's contractions start getting worse and by the time they make it to the actual camp, her water breaks. A guard notices her state of distress, so Miriam distracts him by acting as if going through religious mania, so she is taken away to be executed. He is also about to take Key, so Theo points at the water on the floor between her legs and says it's urine and excrement, effectively driving him away. Theo and Key leave the bus and join a line where Theo loses Key for a short moment when a guard tells him to lose his clock, but they reunite soon after. The line that is eventually released into the city that became the refugee camp, and there they look for Marichka, a Romanian woman that takes them to a safe abandoned building and gives them a private room where Key can have her baby. Labor is hard on Key, but Theo guides her, and eventually she gives birth to a healthy baby girl. Sid takes out his gun then and reveals he knows there's a bounty on their heads that he plans to earn. On their way downstairs, Marichka manages to push Sid off and Theo jumps on him to get him away from Key. After Marichka hits him with a stick, the three of them start running away, with Sid breathing on their backs. They go down a hallway to reach a street, and when Sid gets stuck on the door, Theo finishes him off with a brick to the head. Theo asks Marichka about the boat, and after some confusion on her part, she catches on and starts guiding them to it. Amidst all the fighting between the military and the fishes, she makes them enter a building, and after showing the baby to the owner through a window, they're allowed to enter a very nice apartment. There they eat, rest and get better shoes for Theo while two elderly women play with the baby. One of the guards tells them they need to leave in an hour, so when that time passes, they put Key on a wheelchair and leave the building. They're running again, and soon they're found by Luke and the fishes. Luke takes Key and the baby with him and leaves the other fishes to shoot Theo and Marichka. They're about to do so when more military arrives, giving Theo and Marichka a chance to run from them and try to find Key. Theo gets separated from Marichka, but he keeps going. The next day, Sid comes by to check on them. The city's become a dangerous mess after a wall blew up and people started to flee, so Sid's come to help them escape. When he sees the baby, he promises he'll take them to a boat, but Marichka is against this idea, implying he isn't a good man, avoiding soldiers and fishes until he makes it inside a building under heavy fire. After climbing various stairs, he finally finds Key and her baby near Luke, who is trying to convince them of his good cause when a bomb goes off in the building, ending his life. Theo grabs Key and the baby and escorts them out, not having trouble leaving the building because everyone is awed by the baby. The refugees touch them as if they were a vision, and when they are stopped by the fishes, they also let them pass. While leaving the building, the soldiers who enter notice the baby and start yelling to stop the firing so they can let them pass. As they walk away, everyone outside stare at them in shock, but the fire resumes when the trio is far enough from the building. They quickly get back to the building entrance where they had been captured and reunite with Marichka, who finally takes them to an underground passage where their boat is waiting for them. After refusing to join them, Marichka pushes the boat and sends them to the sea. Theo rows until they make it to the buoy that will serve as their rendezvous point. While waiting, Key notices blood on the boat and Theo tells him it's his. He's been shot, but he's fine. When the baby starts crying, Theo teaches her to burp her, and Key decides then that she will call her daughter Dylan, after Theo's child. It is then that Theo loses consciousness and perhaps even passes away exactly as the tomorrow arrives to take Key and Dylan to safety. If you like it, please like, subscribe, and press the bell, so you don't miss the next movie from Movie Shot.